What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Izuku was the successor of Gojo Satoru. Age of Curses, a time when the world was separated into two, had ended, with one of Kenjaku's plans working with humanity and curses merging into one. This created the world of quirks and the modern day our protagonist finds himself in. The son of the number one hero, All Might, Izuku Yagi. Hailed as the strongest for a reason, will he succeed in his father's footsteps, or will he not be able to rise to the top? But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations, and support the amazing author BigBoyAizen125 for writing this story. Now, let's get into the story. Before the existence of quirks, there existed two worlds of both the human world and Jujutsu society. A world where negativity ruled the world, giving those born with enough cursed energy to have extraordinary abilities that could be wild dead. Due to this world, figures like Ryuman Sukuna and Gojo Satoru existed. The very names of both of them strike fear into the hearts of many who didn't want to die. However, that was the past. Kenjaku, a figure from the past who manipulated the world into what he wanted, had wanted to see how far Jujutsu could go and its heights. Though this dream was squashed, he had one other plan. Though he may not get to live and see it, the world would have new heights of Jujutsu that he could not fathom when he made that decision. So, using his last use of ideal transfiguration and curse manipulation, he made the whole world have the opportunity to become superpowered. Achieving this goal by mixing humans and curses together, humans to be normal, but curses to be made into quirk factors for these new humans to wield. This appeared a few years later as quirks, developing in children that started something revolutionary in those days. A wide-scale panic and confusion destroying almost all societal norms and traditions, breaking governments and allowing carnage to spread out. A noticeable figure of this time being All For One. A man who could steal quirk factors from others and either keep or give to someone else. He rose in Japan and became the number one threat, later known as a villain. Heroes emerged through this time of chaos, brave souls who believed they could help in aiding the eradication of the new issues the world had to face. They appeared as rebellious groups at the time, fighting against the villain groups and armies that quickly became leaders and rulers of their countries. Wars broke out and rampaged throughout all countries until those with more just hearts all came together and were able to hold off and break the villain threat. Heroes, the modern version, appeared in government bodies, teaming up with the government and becoming a policing force. Schools were made in this honor for those who could rise to the top and save everyone. However, one issue that constantly appeared throughout those years was All For One. His presence was destroyed in other countries, though Japan could not get rid of the villain that only got stronger. Many young heroes lost their lives to him. The result shows in the modern day with old heroes from that period being counted on a single hand. It was not until the strongest hero appeared in history, one who made such a standard for heroism that it became an impossible goal to achieve his same level of influence and power. This hero was All Might. His return to Japan was one that completely rewrote it. All For One's forces dropped like flies. His armies were crushed, and his presence reduced to a myth, eventually leading to the downfall of All For One, creating an era of peace and freedom for Japan. Are you following Izuku? A little girl asked, concerned her brother wasn't bothering to study for their upcoming and important All Might test to prove they were his number one fans. If they got first place, their mom promised he would appear at the birthday party. However, she pouted when her white-haired brother looked at her with a confused face. Why? It's another boring documentary about how All Might is so cool. It's kinda repetitive and boring at this point, he lazily said, his bright blue eyes shining brightly under the sun. But you said it was important that we ace this test. Do you not want to watch it with me? Asked sadness taking over her. Since her brother got his super amazing two quirks, he seemed a little off in her opinion. He sighed and smiled at her, one of his goofy and big ones, which made her smile in an instant of seeing it. Nah. You're cool, sis. This documentary is just a pile of shit. As he finished his sentence, the mighty slipper broke through his infinity and hit him on his head. No cursing, young man, their mother said with a stern look, making him gulp. However, a second later, it melted away, and she turned into her mother mode. Did I hurt you, Izuku? Mummy is so sorry. She rushed over and pulled into a hug, which easily made him lose his air. Izumi's sweat dropped at the actions of her mum, so used to her being like this that it wasn't funny. She though found it funny to see her brother doing a perfect fish on land impression, trying to get out. She almost snickered out loud but knew Izuku would give her a pout for the whole day and not speak to her until she offered him a sweat. "Mum, I think Aizen needs some air." Inko blinked before letting Izuku go and apologizing again. After that incident, both of them were left alone again. Izuku got bored incredibly quickly, counting the selling tiles. "Suh," Izumi began, a smile on her face. "What's up with you and Sadako?" His control over the plant disappeared quickly, making Izumi catch with her own quirk, an incredibly powerful telekinetic quirk. What do you mean?" he asked, a blush forming on his face, thinking about the girl he may or may not have a huge crush on. In his eyes, she was perfect, and he couldn't stop thinking about the times he made her smile, which enchanted her beauty more. Though her dad was a dick. "I seen the way you looked at her recently," she said with a teasing smile. "You practically begging her to fall in your arms and kiss you like a weird romance movie dad watches." She practically enjoyed the embarrassed face he had, but she wasn't expecting a comeback so quickly. "And I see how you look at GETO. And you sleep talk." He had a huge smile on his face, making her scared on what he would say. "You practically list off everything you want to do with him," he said, almost laughing at her pissed expression. They both had their little match before both laughed together. Coming to a conclusion, they both wouldn't win against the other. Something funny. They heard the voice of their father. The man walked in with a beaming smile on his face. However, his face turned to horror as the TV showed the one time he tried jumping in the air, instead falling into the ground and bashing his head on the side. "We are laughing because we are trying to outdo each other," Izuku replied, a cheeky smile on his face. "Though all Miger does look funny as hell right now." That's when Toshinori remembered Izuku could see into the soul and most likely seen his all-Miger form within himself. He gulped at the thought of him knowing, and it only seemed to make his smile bigger. "Izuku has a big fat crush on Sadako Todoroki," Izumi blurted out, sticking out her tongue at her brother, who looked betrayed. "And you have one on my best friend, but you don't see me telling the world," he retorted, giving a commercial glare. Toshinori sighed at the mention of the Todoroki family. Not long ago, their eldest son went missing and is possibly dead thanks to the jaw fragment found. Then endeavor got worse and worse, resulting in rumors of his behavior towards his family. He still felt it was a good choice to introduce Izuku to the youngest daughter of the Todoroki family. She seemed to be in a way better mood and always looked disappointed in him leaving, silently begging him to not leave and stay. Toshinori, however, had some fatherly duties to complete for right now. "So maybe you should ask your respective crushes out." He was shocked soon after when Izuku started laughing while listing off ways he could make a romantic scene for him and Sadako as he asked her out. He almost seemed to be surrounded by flowers and lost in his own world. "Nah," Izumi said with a stern look. "I want GETO to ask me out, and so I have to win him over first." She responded with determination in her eyes, with Izuku just getting out of his own illusions to laugh at her. The next day, a quiet, dual-haired girl watched as her siblings played together. She wanted desperately to go over and join them and play along. But her father would be mad again, and she didn't want that again. Though her head turned to a curt and white-haired boy her age. Every time he came over with his sister, her dad wouldn't stop her from interacting with him. She was allowed to play with those two. And she always found herself jealous of the fact that they had such a great relationship as siblings. She wanted her brother to stand up for her when her dad hit her, like Izuku did when someone even pinched Izumi wrong. But she also found it weird how drawn she was to his smile. She had seen very few of them, mostly from her mom from a young age, but no longer happening these days. It made everything seem to have its own happiness, and could bring out joy and laughter from everyone, even herself. She didn't know why, but she never wanted him to leave. She wanted to be with him as much as possible. It was weird recently though. He seemed to get flustered at her smiles. And Izumi would send a teasing smile at her brother. But it made her confused. Why was he so flustered around her these days? Did it mean she did something wrong? "Sadako." The booming voice of her father made her turn round quickly and face him. She was expecting him to make her feel bad for staring at her siblings and dragging her off for training. "Your little friends are here." He then walked off, though a smile was on his face. That planning and pleased smile said he had what he wanted. Though she didn't know, he knew that maybe his daughter wouldn't surpass All Might, but her own children could. Especially if it was the Yagi's boy. As she smiled, knowing her friends had come to see her, she wasn't expecting to see Izuku appearing almost instantly. "Sadako," he said with a calm tone, looking at her carefully. I need to talk to you for a little bit. Aren't we talking now? She responded, tilting her head to the side. In private. Me and you. She looked round and saw no one else, and he face-palmed to himself, sensing his own dad and sister hiding not far away, both waiting for his question. Did I do something wrong? She said, hiding the thought that she did and the pain that brought her, though her eyes showed it clearly to Izuku. What? Nope. He started to get into his usual behavior, knowing she was expecting that, and not his calm side. I just wanted to ask you a question so important, it changes our friendship. And that is, be my girlfriend. He gave the most ridiculous pose anyone had ever seen. However, Sadako was shocked about what he had said. She knew what it was, hearing her brother talk about girls his age and wanting one as a girlfriend. She never thought she would be someone's choice. Especially Izuku's. Sure. She didn't know how to answer that, but she was immediately enveloped in a hug by Izuku, making her shocked. She felt her face warm up, but she didn't know why. That means I am one step closer having out of this place and closer to being my wife in the future. She couldn't help but blush under that. Izuku was going to save her from this place. She wanted to cry with happiness with those words but didn't want him to see her as weakling. With Izumi and Toshinori. Dad, are you sure he is not insane? I am pretty sure he is saying shit out of nowhere now. Izumi generally believes her brother has some issues due to the way he acts. And what's with the pose? She generally wanted to know why he was more flexible than most people at this point with the shit he did. Apparently it's the 6 eyes curse. Was all he could say about the matter in general. Keep it a secret, Izumi. But I don't want Endeavor to know about their relationship. He might take advantage of it. He grimaced at what that man might try, but he didn't want to know. Okay. She beamed at her dad, taking this as a mission that she must endure and complete. Even trying to do the American salute to her father. With Izuku and Sadako. So, it means we are together. Not on the same level as a mother and father but close. She was puzzled at this point. Her social interactions at best were at the hero parties her dad would go to or with Izuku. She shuddered, remembering who was at those parties. If she remembered correctly, his name was Naoya Zenin. Right on the mark. 100 points. Izuku gave an exaggerated thumbs up, getting a chuckle from his new girlfriend. So, does that mean I will see you every day? Izuku thought about it, and then pulled out a gift he had for her. She was puzzled at the gesture. She never got a present. On her birthday, her father would just give a cake and that was it. It's a present, and one that can make us together even when we are far apart. She took it with excitement like it was a solution to a world problem, and carefully took the wrapping off. When she was finished, she had the brand new phone model. It's in the future, it could be any brand, that had just come out. A phone. Yep. Did it cost a lot? No, not really. But it's the brand new version. And? How rich is your dad? Don't know, but it works for me. She looked down at the phone and placed it to her heart, making Izuku confused before she jumped at him, putting him in a hug. Thanks. She didn't want tears to come out, but they did. Izuku only smiled kindly before hugging her back, leaving them in that position as Izumi took pictures from her hiding spot. She didn't know it, but she made her evil rot god uncle proud for having blackmail material on her brother. You promise I will leave this place one day? Sadako asked hopefully at her boyfriend, who looked overly confident in himself. You will, and that day you will be my fiancé. She could only smile at his boldness and rested her head on his chest. Toshinori decided to leave them in peace, dragging Izumi with him, who was confused on a new number that appeared and only had a thumbs up emoji on it. Toshinori paled, knowing exactly who that was from. If Izuku was to rate the worst days of the week, Monday would definitely be the worst. Not only did he have to go to school and not to the arcade or park, but his mom made sure him and his sister had everything they could possibly need to survive up to their college days. He was even given a combat knife, just in case. He groaned to himself. However, a mischievous giggle was heard outside his room. This belonged to his sister, who had a bucket of cold water in her hands, ready to throw it at him at any moment. So, when Izuku did get out of bed and walk to his door, he was immediately enveloped in freezing water and a bucket for a hat. He fell to the floor, which he may or may not have realized the most girly scream Izumi heard. To say the least, Izuku was chasing after her while she was laughing her ass off. 20 minutes later, and he had his revenge. Anytime she would do her hair, he would purposely use a weak blue to make it fall out of place and ruin it. For the next few minutes, she was glaring at him so hard that SUKUNA would be proud. At school was different. Izuku could retreat from it all by going to his beat friend and only female friend. As he lovingly calls it, the Izuku squad. The other two are embarrassed to even think about it. We currently find the Honored One in the school playground with his best friend, Izuku. A soft, calm voice spoke to the young boy sitting on the bench. Said boy turned his head right to look at his best friend, Geto Suguru. Yeah. Do you think we stress Shoko out a lot? I am pretty sure she's been looking at cigarettes more frequently. His question was considered by Izuku, who remembers seeing the girls stare at any cigarette, then looking at their dumb shit, and back again. Nope. That's your imagination. Izuku replied with a bored look. Why would we, the strongest, make anyone else feel stressed? He asked with a huge smile before being smacked on the head by Ken. He turned around with a pout, seeing his sister with an innocent smile while Sadako was quietly giggling at him, which made his heart stop for a moment. He hadn't noticed the sly grin on Geto's face when he saw this. Recently, Sadako was able to get her father into allowing her to attend school. With it, she was able to go to the same one as Izuku, which they both hid their relationship but sometimes not the best. Izuku didn't want her to get death threats from all the other girls who thought he was the ideal embodiment of perfection. She was socially awkward and didn't need that attention. One time, Izuku accidentally said that he had a girlfriend while pointing at her because Katsuki had said he already had his first kiss. And yes, Izuku made sure to make fun of him by saying his mum didn't count, and it was weird also to be kissing his mum. His ass was blown out of a window. Izuku's pout stopped just for him to turn around to Geto and give him a pleading look, which his best friend just laughed and looked away. Oni-chan, Izumi said with a mocking voice. Katsuki is trying to find you. Apparently you said smash while his mum walked past you, and now he is pissed. Izuku was about to respond, but Geto answered for Izuku, however. And I agree, he said with a cheeky smile, and Izuku joined in. They both conducted a plan there, and ran off. Wait. Izumi thought for only a second before her eyes opened in shock. She grabbed Sadako and chased after them. Is there a problem? The socially awkward girl asked in concern. Izumi only gave her the stare, and she knew already. They're not going to. Are they? Sadly, yes, Izumi answered. They're gonna tell Katsuki that his mum is not only sexy but also that she has. She didn't get to finish as all they heard was an explosion and the two idiots in the center of it, laughing while fist bumming. Time skip. End of the day. Guys. Shoko Eri, the nurse of the boys, sounded like she wanted to end them both and too tired with their shit. I am not the school nurse. I am not healing you because you made fun of Katsuki and his mum. Izuku looked like he had been hit in the balls by Sukuna's black flash. Geto was trying to logically explain the situation. But you can't do that, or else my perfect face will be ruined. Please, Shoko. If you do, we will get you a cigarette. And my hands. My beautiful hands. And I promise try and not do it again. It's like when someone doesn't have sugar. It's completely wrong and shouldn't exist. Izuku, please shut up. Never. Everyone loves Izuku Yagi's voice. It's generally annoying at this point. You don't mean that, Suguru. Shoko just sighed while watching the two boys bicker back and forth, trying to convince herself that stupidity was only in one of them. Fine. I will heal you both under one condition. They both shut up and looked at her with pleading eyes. She almost laughed at having this much power over them. You have to dance in a dress. Izuku's done that before. Suguru responded, pulling out his phone and showing it. Izuku had grabbed his phone and tried to delete it. However, Suguru had already sent it quite a few people. I gave you that in confidence, he said while looking incredibly sad. Shoko tried hiding her laughter and healed them both. She whispered to Geto to send it to her, and he nodded. Izuku was skulking back to class. So you and Sadako? Suguru asked. Izuku almost stumbled to the earth after hearing that. What? Nah, me and her are not dating. We are just happily enjoying each other's company, he said while Geto generally looked at Shoko for her to tell him that this guy was for real. She was doing the same, and they both agreed that he was stupid beyond stupid. It's not like I send her message every morning and say how much I love her. Oh, I need to think before I speak. He had a sheepish grin on his face, and the other sighed. The weakest at telling lies. Like how your parents said you're not adopted. Geto just gave him the finger while Izuku laughed. Shoko smiled to herself and wished they never stopped being friends. She loved their company. She decided to have fun of her own. "Race you guys to class?" she said, running past them as both boys registered the challenge and ran after her. "And no teleporting." Izuku just pouted, mumbling how cool teleporting was. By the time they had reached class, the teacher had just sighed and grumbled about them always being late, while mostly looking at Izuku, who had been whistling a song about birds. "You decide to come to my class at the end of the day?" he asked with sweat drop. "I can't believe you still do this." The rest of that day ended soon after, with both best friends running to the arcade and trying to beat each other's score. Yep, nothing could go wrong. They only ran past a man with black hair and buff as fuck, but that's not important. Years have gone by now. In those years, many things happened for Izuku. First, Toshinori revealed to them both his children that he is All Might, shocking Izumi and Izuku, making fun of her for not making the connection. She got angry and wanted to know how he knew, and the simple answer was that he was Izuku Yagi, everyone's favorite person. Izumi rolled her eyes and just thought it was a lucky guess. Izuku learned something at age 9 after finding old books from his ancestor from his dad's side, Yuki Tsukumo. He found it strange about what she wrote about and curses. Learning what he could, he knew one day he would have to visit someone who would know and who she wrote down about a few times. Tengen. He also learned a few more facts. She had written techniques that he has yet to figure out, such as reverse curse technique and how to use it and master it. So, under the careful guidance of Shoko, he began trying to use it on small cuts and somewhat worked, but only for a short bit. However, his 6 eyes became really handy in finding out how to properly use it, and eventually mastered it a year later, doing unbelievable feats. Now 10, he truly believed his life was too good. That was until he came across his latest endeavor. Basically, Endeavor proposes something that nearly had Izuku kill him then and there. Either he agreed to marry Sadako in an arranged marriage, or he would marry her off to the group of people he hated a lot. The Zenin family. "Izuku." The soft voice of Sadako called out to him. She had a sad look in her eyes at seeing him so angry, and she didn't know why. Due to him, she was able to come out of her shell, but it lingered, and she didn't want those angry eyes on her like her father. His expression calmed down, and he looked apologetic. "Sorry, Sadako." He reached and pulled her into a hug. IJ each other's arms as they practiced, a fun activity that Geto may or may not have forced them into. "It's just, I hate your dad so much." He tried to hide his anger, but Sadako saw it all the same. What did he say? She didn't really want to know. She knew he was rambling on recently about perfect grandchild, and that will reach his goal. It didn't help that it drove her mom crazy, and well, the scar says the rest. When Izuku had first seen that scar, he almost went and attacked Endeavor. However, his dad had already got the first hit and had dragged him out for the story. Sadako was terrified at seeing the rage in his eyes, and Izuku had learned to try and never show it to her. He felt terrible when she looked at him like that. "He's using you as a bargaining tool. Either I agree to an arrangement marriage with you or..." Without even being able to finish, Sadako had kissed his cheek, shutting him up. She smiled warmly at him. "Izuku, I know you hate it when others use their power and authority to wrong others. But this one time, it fulfills a dream, doesn't it?" "What do you mean?" She laid her head on his shoulder. "You promised me to take me away from him and this place. If you agree, you can do it. Just make your own points to agree with it." Izuku was stunned to know that she wanted for him to agree to it, and more stunned that he had almost forgotten that. "So please." With her head hidden from him, he didn't see her tears at the corner of her eyes. "Take me away and save me from him." With that said, he had agreed then and there. He was pissed still, but he could be around her more often and make corny jokes to her. And rub it in Katsuki's face, and, oh, he doesn't want to know what Geto would do. Whatever goes through that man's mind when he is not thinking about how much he hates monkeys, he is planning on how to tease Izuku oblivion. "Are you sure you want this, though? That would mean we would be engaged and unable to hide it from others." She stood back up and looked him in the eyes before smiling brightly, which only took his breath away. "You want to be a hero, Izuku? Then please, be mine." Izuku got up and had his own goofy smile before doing a dramatic pose. "Consider yourself safe then." And then he walked into her house while leaving his giggling girlfriend behind. As he entered, he saw the horrible father, trying to drink water with his fire beard on. "Turn off the flames, old man. Shit smells horrible when on fire." he said while putting his finger around his nose to emphasize his point. Brat, he said, clearly unhappy at being insulted by him. Why come and disrupt me while I am trying to train? Izuku raised an eyebrow at that and resisted the insult he had brewing. I agree to your deal. Endeavor looked like he had found the cure to all diseases and will be blessed by the heavens. But she lives with me. And God had just punched him, spun kicked him and proceeded to play basketball with his angels with his body, before doing the United States of Smash on him, sending him into hell. His fire beard got hotter as he looked at Izuku. Now listen, brat. I don't remember you being such a bitch. No. You have no right to abuse your family. Endeavor grew quiet at that and was stunned. He was shocked he would know that he couldn't find a retort. Izuku smirked and started gaining his cheery mood again. So we both agree on this. Sadako will live with my family, and your abuse is not revealed to the public and ruins your image. Endeavor could only nod, shocked that a kid had just done that, and more shocked, he basically outsmarted him. Oh, and one more thing. He looked him in the eyes. Unlike you, I want to marry her for the fact that I love her and want her to be by my side forever. So, you ever try anything and I promise you this. His eyes start glowing menacingly. I will show you why your position of number 2 is the right one. Now Endeavor is a hero who has fought the worst of the worst in his day. So looking at this should be easy. But something about the boy who is so cheery and unserious promising him something like that makes him believe it is real. Izuku left after that and went to Sadako. He leaned out the door with his feet being perfect right angles. Guess we should get used to living with each other. Sadako was stunned. True, she wanted it, but she had just convinced herself that it wouldn't happen. Her father was too stubborn. It felt as if something had been lifted off her shoulders. As if she was saved from a curse. For the first time in his life, he saw his girlfriend break down in tears, running towards and engulfing him in a hug. Thanks. She kept saying as Izuku hugged her, feeling as if he had truly become a hero for someone. He didn't miss the faces of her brother and sister, who had come out after hearing their father scream in pure rage. Seeing Sadako crying and clinging to the boy made it clear. She had been saved. Yo, he said with a big smile, lifting an arm in the air while the other kept Sadako in place. Never actually got your names. Your fire-ass Lord Ozai ripoff is terrible with his kids. But anyway. Name's Izuku Yagi, future number 1 hero, brother-in-law, and goddamn gorgeous. He actually had sprinkles around him at the last part, surprising the other two who tried to find out if it was an illusion. WL. My name is Fuyumi. I'm Sadako's older sister. Did you say brother-in-law? She had just registered that part after the sparkles and pink background disappeared. Though he was dropped dead gorgeous, she had an issue with that personality. Did their father sell their sister to an arrogant asshole? You're probably thinking that your dad had sold your sister off to an arrogant asshole, right? This shut her next accusations of him immediately. Well, I guess no one thinks I am always perfect, but to say that I am going to mistreat your sister, then you don't know me. I have been her boyfriend for 2 years and used your father's dumb idea against him. He heard a small whisper of, "That was my idea," from Sadako and chuckled as he saw her slightly pout. The quiet brother finally spoke. So you're giving her a better place to live and not be mistreated by that sperm donor. Yep, and more yep. You mistreat her, then I will make sure that your body is never found. He bade a fully serious expression, while Izuku didn't take it seriously. I wouldn't dream of hurting her even if it was a nightmare. My precious princess of fire and ice is to be protected at all costs. Sadako became more red than her hair, not used to the situation with being normal with her siblings and the first interaction being like this. Her sister giving her a thumbs up didn't help at all. What's your name anyway, mister? I will break your bones if you hurt her. He jokingly said, only getting a small grin out of him. I am Natsuo. I guess you can call me brother. He spoke with more enthusiasm than he gave off or could muster. Izuku imagined a guy named Tadu and immediately stopped. What your type of women? Fuyumi nearly smashed his head with a hammer. Izuku had a thoughtful expression for a second before speaking. A tall woman with a big ass. He hummed to himself as Natsuo gave a thumbs up to it. Life goals. Was all Sadako thought at the information. She only heard a yelp of pain from the two guys when looking up and seeing a very angry Fuyumi. You shouldn't ask a man that question in front of his fiancée. And you shouldn't answer that question in the first place. She kept screaming at them both, as both tried to apologize. Sadako looked on, wishing for her life to truly change for the better now. Oni-chan. Fuyumi stopped, hearing the one thing she wanted to hear from her sister for years. Please let them go. It's fine, really. She smiled at her, and Fuyumi stopped. She looked too stunned to speak at that moment. She finally found some words. You consider us your family. She was hurt she even had to say it, but the happy smile on her younger sister said it all. She just hugged her and held her in an iron grip. Behind those two, Izuku and Natsuo were comparing quirks in each other's trip. Izuku won and therefore forced him to give him a pair of sunglasses. Natsuo was not that happy anymore. Time skip. So she's living with us now. Izumi basically screamed the roof off, too excited to see her best friend turn to future sister-in-law now, who will be living with her. Don't worry. We can have our own sleepovers all night. Sadako was getting used to the hyperactiveness of her best friend as at school. She wasn't as open about it as her brother was. Izuku. Inko was fighting every fiber of her being to not cry right then and there. My baby. She failed. Has a fiancé. She was crying so much that the others had to find other places to stand on but the ground. You're growing up too fast. Stay a child. Someone used her powers as a mum to break his infinity and pull him into a hug. He still had no idea how she could do that, and hopefully, no one else could. Somewhere else, the buff black-mailed man sneezed and rubbed his nose. Must be someone thinking about me, or the people who want their debts paid. He thought while trying to win in the lottery. And just so you know, he wasn't even close to getting anything right. He looked pissed off and started to continue his plan on beating the Six Eyes Kid. Mrs. and Mr. Yagi. Sadako spoke to them formally, only to get a warm smile from Inko. Please, dear. You're going to be my son's wife one day. Call me Mum. Sadako didn't know how to respond to that. I know you might not like the name, but call me Dad. Toshinori added, adding his own kind smile, allowing Sadako to see a true father figure. M Mum and D Dad. She sounded more like she was testing it. Thanks for allowing me to stay here. I promise. Nah, rules are broken here often. Izuku stated like it was normal, a confident nod from Izumi, and a tired look from the parents told Sadako everything. These two were nightmares at home. Well then, thanks for having me. She bowed respectfully to them, only for Inko to walk up and embrace her. You're such a good kid, Sadako. Maybe you could even keep our son in check. Izuku tried protesting and was shut up by Izumi's laughing and him throwing his shoe at her. He's a lot of work, but I know you two will love each other. So just make him happy, and you are fully welcome here. Toshinori walked up and patted her head, giving his signature dad a smile, making her accept her place fully here. Now who's ready to watch a movie? Inko shouted happily, looking at the couch to see Toshinori, Izuku, and Izumi there with popcorn, soft drinks, soda, and other snacks, waiting for the other two. How? Sadako honestly asked the older woman with her sighing in defeat. I gave up after 3 years with Toshi. Image my surprise when they picked it up. Sadako giggled at the thought of Inko having the Eno face at seeing that for the first time. Soon, the chanting between brother and sister began. Movie. 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 They said, drumming her hands on their legs in anticipation while Inko got the movie. Sadako, for the whole night, felt as if she was finally part of a family. She snuggled into Izuku soon enough. To piss his sister off, Izuku called Geto over after making sure it was fine. That smug bastard teased him, and then he's playing matchmaker. He didn't tell his sister, but Geto has a crush on her as well. It's just hard for him to tell when he is thinking about why he hates monkeys. But overall, except for those two embarrassments at being with each other for the night, isolated to the side of the couch, it was a good night for the Yagi family. It's been a year. So let me get this straight. Izuku spoke to his best friend, confusion written on his face. Some dumbass tried to fight you, and you just made their quirk lose power. That's what I told you. He shrugged, twirling the blue orb in his hands. I just felt it. One moment, he has knives for hands. The next, he doesn't. Izuku nodded and got up, a smile forming on his face. Let's do something super reckless and dumb. Geto smiled as well, both chuckling to themselves. Let's go and find some villains and depower their quirks, he said, running like a cartoon character to find trouble, and Geto did the same. Imagine what Shoko would do if she saw us like this. Geto asked his best friend, who burst out laughing. Find a way to carve our faces into our asses. It didn't take long for them both to find trouble because Izuku naturally pulls it towards him. This time, he found a gang, walked up to the biggest guy there, and used blue to make fly into a wall. "What does it taste like?" Izuku asked, seeing his best friend puking out his lunch. "Sweaty balls. May's simp's bedroom. Or that weird potato guy I saw the other day." Geto looked up and sighed to himself. "Izuku, how the fuck would I know how human flesh tastes like? Also, a potato." Izuku drawed a really bad drawing of the man. When Geto looked, it was a picture of a potato in a suit with a horrible shirt that said, "I am not a child groomer." "You're fucking with me." "Nah." He looked like that. "I actually doubt that." No, he had this weird blue-haired kid who was scratching himself a lot and looked like a League of Legends player. "Suguru. Believe me." "No." They started to walk away as Izuku tried to explain it further. Somehow, he called him several different types of fish and, at one point, called him a crusty potato that dresses like he's going to get bitches, which his broke ass will never get. Geto gave up and just said he believed him, to which Izuku danced the rest of the way. "I swear he spawned into my life," Geto grumbled to himself. As Izuku was doing the moonwalk, he had heard a scream, which he looked at Geto, who shrugged his shoulders. They both went to the source of the scream and found what they weren't expecting. A girl who clearly is too interested in punk rock and that one rich girl Izuku sometimes saw from the Yaoyorozu family. The punk rock girl was screaming because of a pigeon, and the rich girl was trying to calm her down. Izuku, deciding this was too funny, teleported over. He poked the punk rock girl on the forehead, shutting her up while he had the biggest smile on his face. "What's wrong? It's just a pigeon." "I know. I am actually scared of your ugly face." She pointed at his face, to which he pulled out a mirror and looked at himself. "You're scared of seeing such perfection. If I wasn't me, I would too." He had sparkles sound him as he said it. The girl before him basically was blowing steam out of her ears and tried to punch him, only to be stopped by an invisible barrier. "What? Hey! Turn off your barrier so I can punch you, you egotistical ass monkey." Izuku thought he heard Geto scream where. He rolled his eyes and instead grabbed her hand, interlocking his finger with hers. "No need to be so hostile. You're too weak anyway." The rich girl decided to get involved. "Thanks for helping, but maybe not hold her hand?" she asked, trying to figure out if this was the same boy from the parties that every girl there would talk about. And she had to agree with them, he was handsome. "Fine," he said, letting go and sticking out his tongue at her. Then he ignored her existence entirely, and looked at the rich one. "Have I seen you before? Because I feel like you're that Yaoyorozu heiress that my mom and dad want me to be friends with." "Yes, that's me," she said, confirming to herself that it is indeed that boy. "I am Momo Yaoyorozu. You must be Izuku. Your sister says you are an egotistical maniac who is the definition of a cartoon character. We need to work on those social skills," Punk Rock Girl said, also trying to forget Izuku exists, but being too mad. Momo looked incredibly embarrassed at that statement. But I thought you said say what's on your mind to someone that you know. Meeting the fancy, rich fuckboy at parties from a distance don't count," she said, pointing to said boy who at the moment was trying to decide what ice cream should he have. "Then I apologize, Yagi-san. I didn't mean to insult you." Her face was entirely red. Izuku rolled his eyes and stretched. "No problem," he responded. "If you agreed to buy me ice cream." The punk girl scoffed at him. "So you take advantage of girls too?" "No, she's just got money and I want ice cream. Plus, my mom will kick my ass if I don't become her friend." "Jiru," Momo said, smiling at her. "It's fine. Maybe he can become my second friend." Izuku raised an eyebrow at that, but quickly looked at his best friend finally approaching. "Geto." He was sprayed by a disinfectant spray as he spoke, getting it into his mouth. "Don't speak. I heard that there was a monkey nearby," he said, scanning the area as the two girls were confused and trying to figure out if he meant an actual monkey or he was just racist. "She called me an ass monkey." "Oh. Mistakes have been made. Seriously, we need to get you under control. Izuku. How many times have I said this? One of damn monkeys will be the death of us." Momo looked at them both. "Want to join in getting ice cream?" Momo asked the new boy who looked at her, confused for a second before looking at Izuku. "Sure. But not too fancy. Izuku always goes to those ones, and it's really awkward," he says with Jiru, giving a sympathetic look. Momo does the same. Maybe we should pick. Geto nodded, not wanting to go to another restaurant just to order ice cream. And so they have their ice cream from an ice cream truck that was conveniently there. Momo and Izuku were both confused at this while the other two explained what it was. And yes, Jairu and Izuku had a glare match the whole time. Though, when Izuku got his, the man seemed familiar, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Said man, well? The 6 Eyes kid is getting ice cream. Toji thought, giving it out. If only I didn't spend all my money on gambling, then I wouldn't have to do this job. You look broke, Izuku said after getting his ice cream and walking off. Toji nearly pulled out the inverted spear of heaven but had to breathe in and out. It got worse when he overheard the 6 Eyes best friend call him a monkey. He nearly made this TikTok edits of them two to become real. Izuku somehow devoured it in a bite after taking 700 pictures in a span of 2 seconds. Suguru had to pat his back because he had choked it. Yagi-san. Momo decided to try and start a conversation for once. Every time I have heard of you, everyone says you are or going to be the strongest. May I ask what your quirk is to even allow this to happen? Jairu was actually surprised she didn't stutter once and looked incredibly embarrassed after saying it. But maybe, just maybe, this Yagi guy is not so bad. What about I show you? Touch my hand. No, he is definitely the worst person here. But people should touch hands if they are dating. Momo almost cried out, and Izuku and Geto had to look at each other for confirmation that they definitely aren't then. No, Yayarosa-san, it's perfectly normal to hold a hand if given permission. And he doesn't mean in that way that you're thinking of. It is a simple test to show his abilities off. Geto said to her, smiling at the end. Jairu couldn't read that guy. At one point, he is spraying people down because of monkeys, and the next, he is speaking to you like an older brother. Something ain't right. Izuku got close to Jairu's ear and whispered in her ear. My sister got dibs on him. Don't look at him like that. Or are you wishing every guy looked like me? He said, taking off his sunglasses to enhance his beauty. Jairu deadpanned and made a mental note that this guy is definitely on drugs. If every guy looked like you, birth rates wouldn't exist. She smugly replied only for Izuku to laugh. Yeah, because perfection goes for perfection. How do you even have friends? The same way that a normal person does, but then again, your normal is getting rejected by every guy. Jairu just grumbled to herself that it wasn't her problem. The guy she had a crush on was as clueless as stone. So holding his hand isn't anything scandalous. Momo asked Geto, who continued to answer her questions, both looking away from Izuku running away with Jairu's headphones. So, why did you both look at each other? Me and Izuku tried to see how long we stand each other. We have held hands for exactly a week before. He rubbed the back of his head at the last part. Momo was wondering if they were secretly dating and convincing everyone that they were as straight as Circle. After that little adventure, the girls departed with Jairu complaining about Izuku the whole way back. Now Izuku and Geto were left alone. You know my sister has a big fat crush on you, right? Izuku asked his best friend, drinking a Coke and swinging his free arm around. Geto looked back from his hunchback position. Yeah. I thought you would kick my ass to the moon for that. Nah, brothers before hoes. I mean, she's my sister, yeah, I stand by that. He said, a big smile on his face. What? You haven't asked her out because you thought I would send your ass to see the stars for free. Nah. We brothers for life, man. Geto smiled to himself. Forever. Izuku started to run. The last person who gets to Nanami's favorite bakery is the Weskier one. Prepare to have your ego hurt, he said, flying on a curse while Izuku shouted hacks. They both got there at the same time, laughing as they found and definitely not made their poor Kohai want to kill himself. Haibara, though, was there. Master. A raspy-ass voice spoke from the darkness. You do look like a potato-head man who grooms kids. Tamura. I will use a belt quirk if you don't shut up, said Potato said, making him quiet as Villian cried to himself about being called as such. Please be summer already. Izuku practically begged, leaning against his chair at a perfect 90-degree angle. Just this day, and then Dad's got a surprise vacation that I totally don't know about and didn't invite all my friends to. He thought to himself. Bright eyes bastard. Izuku looked over to the origin of the voice, coming from the one and only Katsuki Bikugo. You're going to UA? He asks more calmly this time, knowing the last time he spoke too loud. Izuku introduced him to the wall because he scared Sadako. Izuku smirked with his ego flaring. I have to go through recommendations. or else it wouldn't be fair on those less fortunate. Though, so does Suguru. But you can easily get first place if my sister feels a little funny that day. Katsuki snorted at that, smiling though as he got an idea. If I get first place, then you got to fight me without your shield nonsense. Izuku looked surprised, but not for that reason. You can speak without swearing. My eyes tell me you're Katsuki Bakugo, but who are you truly? Katsuki face-palmed, forgetting that he is speaking to the other loudest person in the room. I can do it. But only for my friends. Izuku actually felt touched at that and smiled. I agreed to your bet. But if you lose, you ask Kami out finally. Katsuki looked like he was going to die. He made the wrong bet with him. I told you, I don't like her. Izumi suddenly appeared at her brother's side. Is this about his crush? Izuku nodded, and she smiled like the sun. You totally like her. It would work too. Let me be your wing woman. And me the wingman. Wing twins? Wing twins? Both brother and sister jumped into the air and high-fived while poor Katsuki had to suffer through it. Watching the twins act like they were high as shit. Of course, they would notice his crush. Somehow, these two just knew and worked together to make it happen. A weird bonding activity. So that's the bet. Izumi said, and Izuku nodded. Izuku, she said with full seriousness. Please train me to be the best and beat him. Izuku also had a very serious face. Are you sure? It will be a hard task. Izumi puffed her chest and spoke with full confidence. Yes, because my brother's Izuku Yagi. I have to at least be one of the strongest to dare call myself your sister. They both nodded as Katsuki realized his task was going to be a lot harder. Luckily, they are all going on a cruise, and apparently Izuku's dad invited all his friends too, for the first 2 weeks, so they shouldn't do much in that time. Settle down, class. The class went silent as the teacher spoke. Now we are going to talk about the future. I know you all want to be heroes. I swear to God, Izuku, if you throw that pencil at Suguru, I will make you go to summer school. No fun. I could have caught it. Seriously, he sucks at throwing them. So I was going to give a whole speech on your future, but I know your reactions. The class erupted with showing off their quirks. Izuku thought it would be funny if he threw a kid out of the window with red. Apparently Izumi had the same idea, and both sent the poor bastard to the pond. Settle down, please, or else you're all going to go to summer school. They all shut up. Now then. It appears that Izuku, Sadako, and Suguru have both got recommendations to UA, and Izumi and Katsuki are going to go through the entrance exams. Of course they got in. Those two keep blowing up the playground for fun. And we wonder why he has such an ego. Izuku was quiet as he looked at Shoko, who was sucking a lollipop. He then got an idea and got his phone out. Scary grandma. I know someone who would love join your program at UA. That Shoko girl. Yep. Just tell her to sign up then. Also, I swear to God, Izuku. Did you put weed in Aizawa's coffee machine? In my defense, worth it. He's been trying to make his cats go after Nizu all morning. Your mother won't be happy with you if you don't answer right now. My cane will meet your head when we meet again. Izuku. Why is Gran trying to get me to murder you? Izumi asked while Izuku whistled to himself. She just sighed and wondered what he could have done. Shoko. Izuku surprised her, appearing at her right. Guess who has an apprenticeship under Recovery Girl? Shoko blinked before her eyes widened. No way you actually asked her. The Izuku squad is eternal. Me, you, and Suguru will never be apart. She could hear Suguru sigh. But at the moment she allowed him this one. Thanks, Izuku. He just smiled and had a big thumbs up. The day continued as such, and at the end of the day, the group of friends were now just talking after school about a few things. I don't remember Dad saying that. Izumi whispered in his ear as Izuku was taking off his sunglasses. He gave a cheeky, and she instantly knew. It's about that thing he said about. If he wants me to be his successor, then I at least get this. Plus, he's got way too much money anyway. Izumi nodded and sat next to her brother, hands on her face on deep thinking. What would you teach me? She asked finally, and he thought about it. Well, seeing as Big Sis will be with us, I think I will teach you how to utilize cursed energy. He told her, showing it a bit with his finger flowing the power. Izumi hummed, not trying to show her brother how excited she was to learn it. Especially that it will be something that is similar to Suguru. Izuku got up and stretched, cracking his back as Katsuki spoke. Anyone want to go to the arcade with me? Geto shrugged. Sure. Still got to beat Izuku's high score. He remembered Izuku's insane high score he had got the last time. Maybe Nanami and Hybra will join in. Izuku, said boy sighed as he slumped his shoulders. You all go without me. I have to go do something today. No if or buts this time, he said, looking at Sadako. Sorry Aizu, but I am having a sleepover with Izumi, Shoko, Jairu, and Momo. Girls' night. Izuku sighed, knowing it's going to be a quiet walk. Right then. I will see you guys, and make sure to annoy Nanami for me, he said at Geto, who rolled his eyes but had already got a plan. And Izuku's scarecrow should help. Now Izuku being left alone on a walk to do a chore might be possibly the worst thing to fuck with. And a poor slime was about to find out. I am going to hollow purple whatever it is, he grumbled to himself, bored out of his mind as he went under the underpass. As he was midway, he heard something move. Ah, perfect. Before it could finish, Izuku Black flashed it into the wall, then used blue to attract it to do it again, then using red on its face to knock it out. So this is what they warned about plastic in the oceans. Ha! I beat the global warming monster. Izuku celebrated, taking multiple photos and sending it to his friends and girlfriend. Fear not for I am, oh hey Izuku. All might came from the same drain that now certainly had to be repaired. Izuku waved, now shooting parts of the villains with reds to pass the time. Took your time, old man. Are you getting weak or something? Izuku mocked but also in his own way, showed concern. Toshinori sighed and went to his normal form. Well, the scar to help, and I got 3 hours now. Though, you shouldn't concern yourself with that. Your pops still got it. It's like watching a man trying to seduce a fire, Izuku said, shaking his head. Toshinori chuckled but was very confused about what he was trying to say. Anyway, see you at home. Mum wants me to do all the chores for what I did to Aizawa. The weed. Toshinori went to collect up the villain and get him to jail as Izuku walked off. Izuku heard his dad jump behind him and just hoped nothing bad happened. A few minutes later, an explosion goes off. Home to do chores or see what's going on. Izuku thought for a second, deciding to sense it instead. And well, the slime may or may not be brutally murdered today. The slime in question felt like he had the world. Not only the boy with the explosion quirk but this ratio boy has helped. Still, he just hoped that white-haired kid didn't turn up. He definitely gave him PTSD after what he did. The heroes were trying to help. However, they were preventing any more damage or possible injuries from happening. They only just managed to get 2 of the other teenage boys out of the area. Yes. With these 2 quirks, no one will stop me. He started laughing until he spotted Izuku waving at him. He shut up after and tried to get away. Nope. He kept repeating, not even trying to face him, trying to run up a building to get away. Come back here, global warming monster, Izuku shouted, appearing next to him. The villain only saw a split second of a fist punching it before blacking out. Twice. Izuku 2, global warming 0. And again, he took multiple photos of the defeated villain. As Izuku was posing over the defeated body of the slug villain, the heroes on the scene were completely stunned. This kid comes out of nowhere and beats the villain they couldn't even fight due to needing to help others. Though the older heroes were happy and a little angry, the younger, especially Mountain Lady, were upset that the spotlight is no longer on them. One of those older heroes was his dad, looking on with pride at his son, before embarrassment for him doing his antics. Kamui Woods sighed, knowing what might happen, and walked over to the kid. Listen, kid. Though I am thankful for helping us, you can be classed as a vigilante at the moment. So I am going to give you a warning because you helped so much. Just be careful. Izuku turned around, then began to think carefully about it. He was thinking carefully about what sweets to buy. I mean, sure, he said with a shrug. But maybe you should tell that to Mountain Tits before me. Kamui was about to give him a verbal lashing, but then he did see how angry his female teammate was. 30 minutes later. What? Izuku screamed so loud that everyone had blood running down their ears. Inko was there, trying her hardest not to crack and cry for punching her son. You need to learn, mister. Do you know how scared I was when I saw you jump in and fight that villain? I get that, but taking away my kakufuku is too far. He cried out in despair, looking at the heavenly food in his mom's grasp. Toshinori chuckled at the scene until his wife's eyes turned to him, and he personally felt All for One was now as scary as bacteria. Don't get me started on you. You had every chance to stop this, and your mistake made this happen. So for a week I will be cooking for everyone but you. Tashinori was now crying his sorrows away while All For One felt jealous for some reason. Maybe it was because someone crushed All Might's feelings before he did. Izumi, now having a sleepover, heard some great information to use against her brother. Turns out, she may have more than one sister, and she is going to abuse the situation. Overall, Izuku life may just get crazy. Maybe some could say bizarre. Tashinori Yagi has had many things happen in his life. Having his organs destroyed, friends and family dying, and his mentor figure being disintegrated in front of him. But somehow, Izuku could still surprise him. And this was a new one. I'm sorry, Mr. Yagi. Ichigo Yayorozu, the mother of Momo, was apologizing to the man. But my daughter said that your son stated that we were invited. Tashinori had a hard time not glaring at his son, who was currently laughing his ass off, his daughter struggling to hold it in, and his wife looking at everything with embarrassment. Well, sure. He stated without thinking, mentally trying to hold back a very tired sigh. It shouldn't be a problem. Izumi turned slightly to her brother and whispered to him. You think the others know now? I think they do, he answered, avoiding Katsuki's glare. Oh well, the old man should have seen it coming. You are crazy mixed with crazy, alongside insanity. Nah, I know what you're going to say, and no, that's not an excuse. I think it is. He shrugged and jogged onto the cruise ship. For the first few days would be normal, if normal concerns him. He would be having a blast doing what he does best, being himself. The only notable things that happened were Katsuki being thrown into the water, Suguru having a curse that looked like a spray bottle around him at all times, and Izumi's training, which she hated. Izumi's training. She was sat there, looking at Izuku with a deadpan expression. She was holding a doll that Izuku said his trainer made and to watch TV while pouring cursed energy into. The issue was that she didn't know how to circulate it in the first place. Cursed energy starts in the stomach and travels around the whole body. You need to focus on negative emotions to get it out in the first place. I think you got it. He gave a thumbs up while doing his goofy smile. Izumi understood and would just ask Shoko for help later, not knowing she would be worse at it. Don't worry. I will just think of your face, she said sweetly, not looking at his hurt face. You hurt me so much. Drama queen. Maybe I should cry to Suguru that his crush hurts me. Oh, your overdramatic crush. She did a double take as Izuku just ran for his life, leaving a very confused Izumi, wondering if she should approach him. And she did later that day. And now, she has a date off the cruise as she just knew Izuku would ruin it if he was close by. She was able to learn from him and even the teacher's name, Mazumichi Yaga. Turns out Izuku, Shoko, and Suguru go to his classes every weekend for 3 hours, either having assignments given or training. However, she regretted going to Shoko for tips on curse energy control as she talked about nonsense that turned into needing a cigarette as Izuku somehow found a way to injure 3 people using his mind to blow up pancakes. The cruise didn't have many issues, and 3 days later, they arrived at Island. The twins rushed off to find Melissa Shield, the secret third member of the Headache Gang. In short, she does things that make Nizu feel a slight bit of pride of a human. Didn't take long as she and her father, David, was waiting for them. I'd better catch up, or Dave will put a huge bill for us to pay, Inko told Tashinori, who nodded, remembering the ramage they went on last time. Melissa was having a normal day. The only difference was the excitement of seeing her cousins, not by blood, but they saw each other as such, today. Her father was warning her about the safety of the island, and she is planning on keeping it this time. So when she saw a dust cloud approaching, she knew they had arrived. And it was obvious with the loud Melissa chant going on. A few seconds later, she was tackled by her cousins. I see you two were excited too, Melissa said, getting up and dusting herself off. She fixed her glasses and was flabbergasted. First, Izumi was more beautiful than the last time they met, plus some noticeable growths elsewhere. And Izuku, the muscles were clearer, and she just knew he didn't change personality-wise. We have been pumped to see you all morning, Izumi said, hugging her closer. It's rare for us 3 to be in the same place at the same time. And it's just nice to see you. If Big Sis is here, then the gang is truly back together. Melissa shuddered, thinking about the woman in question. She was rich, and just hard to get a read on. But her and Izuku came up with the worst pranks, and should not be left alone together. They nearly found a way to build an atomic reactor out of cursed energy. Well, now we are all here. I think it's time to let you in a surprise. Both siblings held their breath in. I'm going to UA to build both of your support gears. As the others got there, they all heard the loud excitement of the two siblings. Melissa felt amazing. She doubted herself but knew she could do it easily if they were this happy. This is best. I can't believe you kept this hidden from us. Izumi practically had stars in her eyes. However, Izuku was just squeezing the life out of her. The Izuku squad, Headache Gang, are going to UA. This is the best time to be alive. The others finally got there, seeing the celebrations of the twins. Sadako was the first to get there, tapping her boyfriend's back, who proceeded to jump due to not expecting it. He looked back and sighed. How did I not sense you? Was his thoughts. However, his girlfriend decided to play around with him. Because I am Sadako Todoroki. You did not just steal my line. Maybe I did. What are you gonna do about it? Izuku had to stop and think there. However, he was a quick thinker and found a perfect solution almost instantly. I will call your dad. After that comment, Izuku had to repeat sorry over 30 times a minute until, eventually, she gave up being angry. They had a nice little kiss, and all was better. However, today's secret guest is simple, not Toji. He couldn't afford a ticket there. A man with stitches on his forehead looked down at Izuku, a barely audio hum rumbling on his lips. He was clearly an older-looking man, his hair short and slicked back, with his face adorned with a small mustache, the same color as his hair. Though his eyes were cold, a desire to learn had clearly been placed in him, a yearning to know more beyond what a normal person should know. He wore a three-piece business suit, a napkin neatly folded on his breast pocket. His fingers only laced with a singular ring. Interesting. He thought to himself for a second before leaving. The Gojo family certainly doesn't change. He continued to walk away, heading towards the inner part of the island, hands going into his pockets at the side of his suit jacket. Before he fully disappeared, he smiled to himself. I wonder, will he be successful? Izuku had felt the eyes of the mystery man on him, a genuine shiver and cold feeling coming over him. As if some past he had not known was slowly uncovered. He didn't let it affect his exterior, but inside, he was riddled with questions. Eventually, the night had come faster than expected. All the fun they had there passing in seconds. Suguru and Izuku had competitions over the smallest things. Izuku having a romantic date with Sadako, Suguru finally getting that date he dreamed of with Izumi. But, unknown to Izuku, things were gonna change soon. That man from before had walked to a secret facility, only known to a select few, David not knowing about its existence. He walked quietly and softly, his own mind thinking faster about plans that would shock the world. If he gains one for all, I wonder what will happen to Infinity and Limitless. It would seem strange for it to evolve, but would it appear in other people more regularly than it previously did? Or would it be its end as no one would be able to handle it after? His pondering was stopped as a smile placed on his lips. I wonder how long it would take for those two sides to awaken. Gojo seemed to awaken quickly, but Uram and Sukuna seemed to be slow or repressed in some way. He sat down in his chair and leaned back. Suguru Geto's body will not be as good as it was last time. Only if time calls for it, will I decide on taking it. But this is a different time period. An image of All for One and Tenko Shimura, also known as Tamura Shigaraki, popped up. I will just have to wait. Izuku looked at his dad with a confused face, not understanding the current predicament he was in. Standing there, alone with his dad at the beach at a god-awful hour, looking at him with a strand of hair. Izuku obviously knew what he meant, but hair. Really? DNA being transferred. First, he is his son, so how did he not have it already? Second, if not him, then his sister. Thirdly, he needed some coffee. Izuku let out a tired sigh. Do I eat this hair, which will be hard to do in the first place, and then get this quirk which you have hyped up for me for nearly 3 months? I think I could beat anyone's ass as it is, so why not give it to someone else? Toshinori looked stern as he spoke. Because you're Izuku Yagi. Shit, that is a good reason. Izuku said before pointing a finger at him. Are you using my vanity against me? If so, you are doing a good job, he said with a proud smile. So give it here. There is no way it was that easy. Toshinori had to actually think how dumb his son could be and the levels of arrogance that could make Lotsuki Bakugo have to calm down with shame, not being able to catch up to him. Izuku first put it in his mouth before struggling to get it down his throat. Now, Izuku was thinking how to kill his dad with a blue and red coming down and up both holes before becoming purple, but when he finally did it, he was completely still. Izuku? Tashinori asked. Izuku, Sadako is here looking very angry. No reaction. A bikini. No reaction. Oh my god. He accidentally turned to his All Might form. He's having an allergic reaction. All Might isn't the smartest person sometimes. In Izuku's own body, due to cursed energy being formed in the stomach, the powers immediately mixed, having him receive all the information at once and awakening other things. For a moment, black markings seemed to cover Izuku's body before disappearing. In his own mind, he got to meet some interesting characters. In Izuku's mind, Izuku looked at the first one for all user with a raised eyebrow, while the first, Yoichi, was shocked that they had synchronized so quickly in the new host. They were just looking at each other before speaking. So ain't you aliens that have come to invade my mind? Nah, my eyes say otherwise. He was thinking to himself while the first sighed. Hello 9. As he was about to greet him in the usual way, Izuku put a hand to his face. Izuku. He corrected before returning to his thinking pose. Hello Izuku, nice to meet you. I am the first user of One for All, Yoichi. Me and the others didn't expect someone so powerful to be the new host. He generally stated, wondering how Izuku wasn't being ripped apart by the sheer power alone. Izuku smiled his usual goofy one. Nice to meet ya. So I have dead people in my brain. Yes, essentially. Neat. You're not scared by that. You're not as scary as a molesting potato man. You mean my brother? You're what? Izuku's shouts awoke the other users inside, all wondering who was screaming out. As they arrived, they saw a white-haired teen with gemstones for eyes ranting on how it didn't make sense between Yoichi and All for One. Isn't that Tashinori's son? The seventh user, Nana Shimura, asked with surprise. Seeing Hick through Tashinori's eyes was one thing, but now they would see through his. The second, Kudo, and third, Bruce, grumbled between each other, not liking the idea of an even louder man now. The fourth, Hikage, was intrigued by the prospect but also shocked that the quirk was not ripping him apart. By how he felt by it, it was being integrated into Izuku perfectly, no issue about it. It still needed time, but it was shocking. Plus, the boy seemed to be awakening some unknown parts of himself, his quirk warning him of the potential danger of it, and the overwhelming feeling of evil that came from it. The fifth, Daigoro, was kinda hyped, more or less that the kid seemed to be liked him in more ways than the others, with his own personality. He was also gonna be groaning a lot due to choir just to be around him. Tashinori's own memory's spectral ghost thing could attest for that. Finally, the seventh, N, was quiet on his opinion. He seemed just happy that the new user wouldn't be harmed by One for All setbacks that much. What they all didn't expect was more dead people. Wait, is that Dad's mentor? He looked over and saw them all. Nana ran up, which he didn't expect, and gave him a hug. She smiled at him warmly. Toshi's boy seems to have grown up to be a man. How does it feel to join us in this quiet place? We were not expecting you, to be honest, Yoichi said with a sigh. I had this whole idea as well. We'd be sitting on chairs while waiting for you and be all mysterious about it, and all. Izuku nodded at that thought before clapping his hands. Let's pretend that this hasn't happened and then do that. It's already over. Yoichi sighed, spawning in some old comics to sulk with. The second user decided to speak instead of being edgy and mysterious, plopping his face in the corner and making his totally not husband do the same. How the hell is this happening anyway? And why the hell would he help an annoying brat who only thinks he is the strongest? Well, that's just true. Shut up. Nah. The second user sighed and Izuku decided to speak again. You have full access to my own mind, or at least I presume, and you decide to go off me having fun with my family as what I am as a person. Next you're gonna say back in my day we used to actually fight just to get a bag of carrots while a potato head man danced over my parents' dead bodies. The second user became quiet, noting he should do a little more research into him. As they got to know each other and learn a little bit, he fully synchronized and was about to leave. So tell my dad that you're proud of him. Yes. I think Toshi needs a bit more inspiration in his life, Nana said while imaging Toshi not trying to cry at the news. Knowing him, he would cry smiling. Izuku finally got out of his dream link state to find himself in his room while hearing his mum tell his dad off for making her concerned that Izuku had an allergic reaction. As he was about to try and get up, Sadako appeared out of nowhere and hugged him. No words spoken, they just missed Rachel other for Izuku being awakened early and Sadako being concerned about Tashinori's claims. So, Dad thought I had an allergic reaction, and now Mom is trying to knock him out. Why does this seem normal? He rhetorically asked himself as Sadako leaned on his arm. Well, I am just happy you're fine. Also, have you always been this buff? She was poking then with curiosity before something else came to mind. Also, black markings sometimes appeared while you were sleeping. He could hear the concern in her voice, and he smiled warmly at her. They're not bad, it may just be my quirk evolving due to one for all. He could hear the previous users all being baffled about it. They were trying to find out, but as it appeared in a heavy burst of power, it disappeared. It was almost like it was always there in Izuku, just now being woken up. They only told him that it seemed that part of his power was locked and just awoken. The same dark man from a few days ago knew what he felt. The King of Curses was always recognizable. But he was dumbfounded by what he felt. Impossible. Did Sukuna's consciousness mix with his? Does that mean that Sukuna, Gojo and Izuku are all the same person? Interesting. Time skip. Izuku and Sadako had traveled to a private part of the island. Mainly, Izuku wanted to test a few things out and that he wanted alone time with his ice princess. As they arrived near a private holiday house that the Yagi family owned, he got prepared to test a few things out. The house was located at the back of the island. A nice area by their own private beach. Usually, the family would come here, but Izuku's prank had changed that. The house wasn't big, it was perfect for just the family of 5. Though it was even then clearly expensive looking, being made to withstand the attacks of Izuku, his sister and father when they liked to train. Sadako sat on a rock, curiosity on her face to see Izuku new training. He started by channeling the new energy, which was now mixed with his cursed. He smiled over at Sadako. It seems that I got a significant boost in power and energy. Probably draw out a lot more power. Though, I think that might cause a bit more damage than I would like to go back with. You break your arm today and I am making sure you sleep with that hospital bed. Izuku shivered but almost felt it was fate for him and a hospital bed to meet. Izuku was flinging his hands around here and there, getting a feel for the energy coursing through him. Sadako thought in helping him out. So she threw a can at him. Izuku moved his hand to its general location and it sliced in half, leaving them both shocked. Izuku and Sadako just looked at the fallen, 2 halves of the can, oldly familiar, on the ground, clean through the can, as if a perfect tool for the job had been used. Izuku turned to look at his hand, trying to figure out how he cut a can in 2 without having a sharp tool to do so. Sadako was trying to figure out if it could be his new quirks doing. In her mind, he had just got one for all, so that is the reason, or maybe, just maybe, All Might's dad was a secret love child of a cutting quirk. Izuku tried to remember the feeling of cutting it. It was as if he wanted to, like a new muscle begging to be stretched, though clearly it would have preferred an actual opponent. Though it was odd how when he did so, like malevolent feelings having a form to finally do as they please. His 6 eyes only revealed that everything was normal, just that his first quirks may not be as he thought. It did a good hiding, or was it just his ego getting in the way, and he did see it before but played it off. Though he wouldn't admit it, he knew that was the reason. I need to get that under control, he thought. Is that why I couldn't use Mu domain expansion then? I missed some pieces. Originally, he thought he had the exact same moves as the other 6 eyes users. In the back of his mind, he started to figure out why this was not the case. So he quickly decided to consult some ancient wisdom and get them on the job for now. In his mindscape. Yo, dead people living rent-free in my mind. He got a collective groan at the name. You guys can probably check my original quirks, right? We can do that, Nana replied. You want us to check how you missed a quirk or how it got there? Yoichi snickered to himself before replying. Well, when a mommy and daddy love each other very much. I know that, you old ashes, he said while rolling his eyes. What I mean is that being a 6 eyes user with infinity only appears every hundreds of years. Judging by the times, the time between me and Satoru Gojo is not long enough. It's as if someone forced it to happen and may be the reason as to why I have this quirk. He told the others who nodded, understanding why he might want answers around. Yoichi sighed. We can only get so many answers here. Sadly, you must likely have to pursue it. The best theory I can say is that one of these quirks was your original, probably the cutting one if what you say is true. I wouldn't be shocked if someone was able to meddle with your mom while she was pregnant. She would have been a high-value target for All for One at that moment. Izuku was starting to think of possible people, though his mind was going back to the words Yuki had written down about how a person called Kenjaku was able to create the Cursed Womb paintings. Izuku got out of his mind cape. Though he continued to think around the new mystery, Sadako walked over to him. Though curious about the new quirk, she placed her hand on his arm before hugging his arm. So you can slice things up now. That's pretty useful. One for all has some perks. She said her thoughts, and Izuku started to sweat. He wanted to agree, his ego not wanting to be fractured, but he had to be honest to her. Plus, he couldn't lie to her, she could smell it, and now it was bullshit. So could anyone he knew, but that's not the point. So he decided to come clean about it. In truth, this was one of my original quirks. My 6 eyes would have easily seen it, and I probably did before, but I just thought I was perfect with what I had. He told the truth, and Sadako sighed. Well, at least I know you're the real Izuku. Only he would be so arrogant to do that. Izuku comically had a dark cloud over him. But, at least my Aiza hasn't turned like my dad after finding power. Also, now you beat Nanami in cutting games. Izuku now felt he had a new goal in life and felt better. 1. Now Nanami's ratio was going to have a contender, and they have more to bond with. 2. He still hates her dad way too much. He seemed as if he had never felt any sadness in his life, hugging his girlfriend in a tight embrace. She returned it, resting her head on his shoulder. It was as if time had slowed for them, that nothing could break them out of each other's enchantment for a couple of minutes. Sadako. Izuku whispered in her ear, making her hum as a response. Are we gonna stay like this for the rest of the day? He told her she only wrapped her legs around his waist, and now Izuku wouldn't be able to let her go and be free. You're comfy at the moment, was all she said, and Izuku rolled his eyes but sat down. He knew there would be no chance of her getting off at the moment, but that works for him, more excuses to be lazy. I guess infinity could not keep you away from me? He asked, now closing his eyes, falling back so that they were lying on the grass. It's not an infinite amount of space keeping us apart, Aizu. It's always pulling me to its center. The infinite it surrounds is our love. She told him, letting go of him to now comfortably rest on top of him. Now that's a new one. Izuku chuckled, both resting there, enjoying the afternoon with each other. A few minutes later, he heard light snoring. Izuku soon joined her, both going into a nap with each other. Only minutes later did they wake up to a poking. Izuku woke up first, spotting brown hair. The small finger was poking was his cheek. He soon got a better look and saw a little kid, having brown hair. She looked to be young, curiosity on her face. Izuku silently woke up Sadako, who was not pleased that her comfy bed had to wake her up. But she soon noticed the kid as well. Hello? She said before yawning. Do you need help? She asked kindly, now getting off her boyfriend, who was slightly upset it had to end. Hello? She said with a big smile and energy, which would have shocked Sadako if she hadn't lived with the Hyper twins nearly all her life. Why were you sleeping on grass? Isn't that uncomfortable? Especially that your clothes seem expensive. She noted, Izuku chuckling that this kid realized that. Sadako took a second and looked at Izuku. You said that they weren't expensive. Not in New York standards. He responded, and she sighed. She loved the fact that he would do something like that for her, but she didn't like how he just wasted money without a thought. The child looked as if she found a gold mine. Mister, you're rich? Her eyes looked as if they glowed with sparkles. Izuku posed as a way of proving it. Super rich. She practically was as bright as a star. Sadako could only sigh. His ego was fractured but was being made even stronger than before. Let me guess, you want me to treat your family to a nice dinner? Izuku said as if he hit gold, but her smile faded. Izuku's eyes immediately told him what he needed to know, he fucked up. I don't really have one, she said while looking down. Sadako pulled her into a hug. Izuku did not know what to do until a thought came to mind. So you want to spend the day with us then? Sadako looked confused, but the kid looked excited. You mean, you will be my mummy and daddy for today? No. Absolutely. Now Sadako doesn't usually want to freeze her boyfriend, but this is one of those moments. She couldn't act like a mom to save her life, not even for a day. The kid smiled happily. Well, let's go then. She grabbed both of their hands, Izuku turning off his infinity so she could, and ran back towards the main part of the island. Sadako was going to scold him, but she saw how they both looked together and generally believed they might be father and daughter. Maybe it won't be so bad. She thought the kid had let go of their hands before entering the town. "Before we go in, what's your name?" she asked, and the child turned back with a big smile. "Nobara," she said while copying the same pose Izuku did earlier. Izuku wanted to cry then, and Sadako was actually starting to believe that maybe stopping this now might save this kid. However, Nobara looked towards the restaurants, and her stomach grumbled. She looked towards them, and Izuku picked her up, giving her a piggyback ride. Nobara was generally surprised how her new and one-day dad was so tall. As they walked past places, Sadako held Izuku's hand, and people generally were whispering. She heard one person say how cute they were. Never having a moment like this before, she tightened her grip, not wanting it to end. Izuku just kept up his smile, and Sadako was bright red with embarrassment. The trio arrived at one of the few five-star restaurants on the island, Nobara shocked that they were going here. Izuku put her down and gently patted her head. "Wouldn't that be expensive?" she asked with care. Sadako got on her level and smiled, too. "Remember, he's super rich," she said. Nobara's face had lighting up like a Christmas tree. She looked at him for confirmation. "Super duper rich," he replied, and she felt more confident. "So I can have anything." She only imagined what it could be like. They walked in and got a table quickly. As they sat down, Nobara kept going through the list, having Sadako read some of the confusing stuff or explaining it. Izuku watched with a big smile, watching Sadako be like a mom. He could only imagine that this is what she wanted with her own. Izuku silently made a deal that if everything went well, or it was generally a good time, then he would adopt her. Though, it was already clear that he did. After they all ordered, "I have no idea of any Japanese food, just think of something here," they patiently waited. Sadako was enjoying this more than she thought. Though a part of her was remembering her own past with her original family. Her scar almost felt burning again. But the moment seemed to layer a blanket of liberation from the pain. And of course Nobara. She grew up in the countryside, never thinking that this was possible but had wished that it was. She was only on the island because she got lost. But she didn't mind anymore, she liked her new parents. Her dad was an over-energetic, funny guy who seemed to put other joy over his own, or at least around her. While her mom was the sweetest, being like an angel she heard about. "So you can punch walls and break them," she said with absolute admiration as Izuku told her about the one time he punched a wall, not telling her it was because a spider scared him, and he proceeded to destroy any evidence it ever happened, except that mosquito that got away. "Yep. And I have never lost to anyone. Because I am the strongest. So my daddy can beat anyone. No bad guy could ever hope in beating me." Far away, a homeless guy sneezed. Sadako decided it was her own turn. "And I can use ice and fire." She got the reaction she wanted. And a little extra. "So mummy is better." Izuku's ego was absolutely broken. It was like he took 20 hollow purples to chest and balls. Sadako only laughed at her boyfriend's reaction. He was even closing his arms like a child and mumbling how he could break the laws of space. Sadako kissed her forehead. "Thanks. You're cooler than daddy in my eyes as well. But your dad is still very cool, right?" "Of course," Nobara said, making Izuku happy. After their meal, they went out and found some toys, with Nobara having a few soft toys of her favorite heroes, one even being Kamui Woods. And of course, the clothes store. Izuku, while being rich, had prayed that she didn't buy it out. She had got several new outfits for herself, and picked up new sunglasses to be like Izuku. She also made them both get new clothes, which the mother-daughter combo got Izuku wearing a rabbit costume. After that shopping spree, they were walking back to the rest of the family. Izuku decided to speak to her about something. Bara. The new nickname that Izuku and Sadako had called her. "What's your last name?" "Kujisaki," she said with a confused face. Weird, thought it was Yagi. She stopped in her tracks and looked at him with shock. Her eyes started to water up. "Why Yagi?" she asked, almost scared that it wasn't their last name and it was a joke. Would they be the first people to actually adopt her? Everyone looked over her for her personality. She was scared about what he could be doing. "Yep. Mr. and Mrs. Yagi. With their little princess," he said, getting down to her level. Sadako decided to do the same, smiling at her. Nobara started to cry before running into their arms. "Thanks, Mummy and Daddy," she said while crying, both parents hugging her while she continued to cry. "Now, let's go and meet the rest of the family," Sadako said, with Nobara nodding her head. Now they walked together. She was holding both of their hands as they returned home. As Izuku got to the door, telling his girlfriend that they were gonna surprise everyone, she kept Nobara behind her. They got to the living room, where Inko and Tashinori were watching the news, and Izumi was texting Suguru. "Yo." Izuku greeted, scaring Inko, not realizing her son was home. "Yo bro," Izumi said, looking over at him and Sadako. "Where were you lovebirds? Hopefully not doing anything naughty," she said with a smirk, though Izuku smiled. "Well, I can tell you that we had a fun day. All three of us." Now everyone else was confused. Inko thought her son may be tired, and that's why he said that. Tashinori was just plain confused, and Izumi thought Sadako was pregnant. Sadako moved slightly, gently pushing forward a young girl. All the other Yagis had their own reaction. "Wait. Am I an ant now? He's growing too fast." Tashinori looked at his son and saw that he was fully confident in this choice and smiled. He got up and went towards his granddaughter. In Nobara's eyes, she saw a skeleton of man walk towards her. But she could pick apart some things and realize that he would be her new granddad. She approached as well. "Are you my granddad?" "I am not just any granddad, I am also the..." He turns to his All Might form. "Myest granddad." He smiled his heroic one, and his granddaughter just looked as if blue-haired man had approached her. "My granddad is All Might?" she asked, and Izuku responded with a thumbs up. She became a beacon of joy. "Granddad's the coolest now." Izuku had to agree with that point. He looked towards his sister, who was prying all information out of Sadako. He couldn't make out some things, but judging by Sadako's blush, he could tell what she was saying. Well, that's that over for Izuku. Now he has started his adopting kids phase. Hopefully, the next one doesn't give him trauma. Izuku looked at a KFC and shivered. "You will not get me this time." Izuku continued to glare at it, leaving Nobara confused next to him, wondering the beef between her dad and KFC. Izuku coughed into his hand and looked at Nobara and smirked. "So, what are we doing today?" "I get to choose." Her eyes sparkled, and she grabbed his hand, rushing straight to the toy shop. "I want a big stuffed toy of Grandpa Might." Izuku chuckled and lifted her up and on his shoulder. Yai, Captain." Father and daughter shared a laugh as they entered the big toy store and looked around. It was split into 3 sections, toys like Lego and action figures, bikes, plus kid-sized cars they could safely use, and finally, heroes. Nobara looked over at all 3, her young mind wondering if she could bribe her dad into getting out the toys. Izuku looked at her and grumbled, already knowing what her thoughts were and trying to mentally prepare himself against her cute tactics before he caved and gave her what she wanted. "Papa. Everything." "No." "Okay, everything, 1. "No." "I'll tell Mommy you didn't like her cooking last night." So Izuku brought at least 20 toys for her. He sighed as he went to collect them, while Nobara stayed in a kid play area to meet new kids her age. As she wondered, she saw a boy the same age as her, with black hair. He looked lonely due to the fact his sister had homework and couldn't be with him. She decided to approach him, intrigued by him. "Hey," she spoke, trying to emulate Izuku by a big smile. "You also waiting for your dad?" "All the time." He grumbled and looked away, confusing Nobara. She tried to understand his words. However, all she could think of was that his dad was busy most of the time. "So your dad is really busy?" she asked him with a big smile, feeling as if she had figured out the hardest mystery in the world. "You could say that." He looked at her and saw she looked a little bit more fancy than most other kids. "Is your dad rich?" "Yeah. He's super, mega duper rich." She strikes a pose, making the boy feel a shiver, as if it could get much worse than her. "What does he do?" He wanted to learn more but didn't want to grow too attached to her. He didn't want to feel left alone again, another person leaving his life. "Well, Dad is gonna inherit our clan and be a super, mega hero. Just like my..." She stopped herself, releasing she nearly told her new friend, in her eyes, about All Might. "Like All Might." The boy squinted at her suspiciously, knowing she messed up. However, she quick reaction to asking why he looked a little poor started a little argument between them that stopped his suspicion. With Izuku. He put another toy in his bag, being Mirko, the rabbit hero. He just put a few more in and noticed the buff black hair guy. He had seen him at Ice Cream Van and decided to talk to him. "Yo. Ice Cream Man? You good?" Toji turned round and eyed him up, wondering why Six Eyes Brat was here. He saw his bag and sighed. Yeah, I remember you. If I recall, you called me broke, and your friend called me a monkey. Izuku rubbed the back of his head, remembering Geto's added jab. Yeah. Okay. He's got a problem. He laughed and patted Toji's back. So why you here? You're asking a grown-ass man why he is in a toy shop. Toji nudged his hand away and was getting annoyed with Izuku. Well, I hope it's not free candy and you're getting a toy for your child. Toji looked at Izuku with shock. He had heard Izuku didn't have a filter, but now the worker was looking at him with suspicion now. No. My kid wanted a toy. He growled out, sighing at Izuku, wanting to get his worm out and stab him right there. But you can't pay for it. Izuku asked, got a fierce glare from Toji. Yo, chill. I am just saying. You look like the type of guy who gets big bucks but spends it on shit. Like a casino. Toji was ready then and there to stab him, but Izuku grabbed his toy, paid for it, and gave it to him. There you go. Toji looked at the toy, frozen. When he looked back up to thank him, Izuku was gone. When he went to look, he saw Izuku pick Nobara up, happily laughing with each other while she waved goodbye to Megumi, who actually looked happy. He mentally groaned, hoping this wouldn't affect him when he was going for the killing blow. Izuku and Nobara left while laughing. Apparently, Nobara had taught Megumi how to tie his shoes, who failed miserable and did a funny hand motion. So, Papa. Nobara tugged his leg. Can I see Megumi again? Izuku sent her a teasing smirk, which she didn't get. He sighed and rolled his eyes. I wonder how your mom will handle the news about you having a boyfriend. Nobara stopped and angrily pouted. Nah, I like girls. Izuku chuckled again and high-fived her. Same. We share a lot in common. That's it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. With that, take care.